Rob, just as I said earlier, you and I were on the air, and I had the game on. I mean, a little of I was saying on the air, I always have the games on while I'm doing the show, but obviously I've got the volume down. So I guess there was a lot of commentary, as you would expect, from Joe Buck, who was calling the game, and
confusion because they didn't know what was going on, and
but they were even saying the CPR. I didn't know. I couldn't tell that they were even doing CPR. Did you have the game on?
Yeah.
Could you tell that during our show? I was just reacting to the fact that he was down for so long.
I had the sound down as well, so I really couldn't tell what was going on.
Players tearing up, praying. That's when I started thinking, okay, this is not your typical injury.
And also, they were telling viewers, Chris, from all the accounts that I read, because again, I was not listening to the broadcast, that, okay, we're going to get started up in about 5 minutes, and they kept putting that out there, and obviously it didn't happen. So there was a miscommunication of that, and I think that when these moments happen, I think we always have to think of the humanity or the person's welfare more than our inconvenience, Chris. I know it's real hard for people to come to grips that everything's not going to work out for you. You know what I mean? Like there's inconveniences in life. This is not an inconvenience. This is someone's life that he's fighting for. It's our inconvenience that the game didn't go on, but that's nothing compared to what he went through and his family. Can you imagine if your family's at home watching TV and you realize that that's your son, your boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, husband, whatever it is, he might be to you, cousin or whatever, is the one down on the football field. I mean, it's got to be heart-wrenching, and you don't know what's going on, Chris. You have no idea the severity of it. And most people don't know what the severity is. They really don't. So, it's easy to go okay, what's going on here? Can we move the game on? Like that, because you don't know, but you should always stop and think back to yourself. How would you like to be handled if you had a medical emergency, Chris, in the worst situation or circumstance? You would want people to have compassion for you. That's it.
Well, that obviously goes back to the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. If we all thought about those words in so many areas and instances in our lives, things would certainly be a lot better in our society. But for those, Rob, who I'm sure there were some fans, you mentioned inconvenience. I'm sure many of the fans, certainly not all of them, who were there last night wanted the game to continue. Maybe fans watching, wanted the game to continue. And I mentioned yesterday, my dad passed last week, and he was, as you mentioned, he was 79 years old, had stage 4 cancer, and he lived a full life, and we could see the inevitable coming because of, his illnesses. And even then, Rob, last week, it was like, you think about some of the stuff we love, actually the stuff that's allowed you and I to really have a wonderful career and make money and take care of our families and stuff. But we talk about these games sometimes with so much passion and ferocity and, it's it is, everything is resting on these games, like it's life and death. And obviously we like the passion and all that.
Right.
And there's
no
nothing
one wants
wrong
to
with
listen
being
to
excited
us
about your game, your sports. But my point is, last week, me experiencing the death of a 79-year-old man, my dad, it made that stuff feel irrelevant and unimportant in the grand scheme of things. And so, Rob, can you imagine the teammates of Damar Hamlin and the opponents, the Bengals? A 24-year-old guy in the prime of his life, suddenly, nothing you could see coming, all of a sudden is fighting for his life. There's no way those players were thinking about let's get it going again, or could have gone out there and felt comfortable playing that football game, studying the game plans, trying to remember what you're supposed to do. It just, I know, Rob, 24 years old, fighting for his life, a teammate, a friend. There's no way those guys were in any condition to keep playing. And ultimately, the right thing happened. How they got there, we'll talk about later, but the right thing happened and they didn't play.
Well, let me say this, Chris. When I talked about it in 1997, I was a columnist for Newsday. And, I worked in Detroit for a long time. And so I was writing a column for Newsday, and I was covering a Lions-Jets game in 1997. And we had a similar incident happen where the Lions medical staff administered, Chris, CPR to linebacker Reggie Brown. He broke his neck in the game. The players were crying and praying. And that was another game that, Chris, that people will remember, just not for Reggie Brown's breaking his neck. That was a game Barry Sanders also rushed for over 2,000 yards. So it was weird, like the dynamics of a high.
I didn't even remember that either.
Yeah, like a big moment in the NFL, but a really serious moment. And you ready for this, Chris? With all that went on last night, the commissioner of the NFL, Paul Tagliabue, at that time, called Bobby Ross, who was the coach of the Lions, and said to Bobby Ross, "You guys have to finish the game. Have to. Right. No, this is 1997. You have no choice. A man has broken his neck on the field, Chris. Players are in tears, praying. You think they wanted to play football?"
I think, Rob, that was the time, and that was not even that long ago. 25 years ago, 26 now.
Yep.
Where players weren't as empowered and didn't feel as empowered. Like nowadays, I mean, we know the players last night were like, we not really in the coaches mood, the position to play. I think players have a stronger voice now. And I also think, Rob, with social media, the public has a stronger voice because everybody can have their say. And so I think you're right. I mean, that situation is very similar to what happened last night.
And what's crazy,
they played. Whereas today it's a lot different. And so that's one of the ways that our society's gotten better. It's more, in some ways, more compassionate, some ways. And the players, I think their voices are heard a little more, and it's particularly in the NBA and NFL where their unions weren't as strong as the baseball players.
I was just going to say, Chris, because we gave the other scenario, which was a year before, 1996, when umpire John McSherry had a massive heart attack and collapsed and died on the field in Cincinnati. That was 1996. The owner of the Reds, Marge Schott, wanted to play the game because it was opening day. And the players, Chris, refused to play. The players refused to play, and that's why that opening day was not played. Eric Davis, Barry Larkin were two of the biggest stars on the Reds, and both said, "I'm not in the mood to play baseball today." A man just died on the field. He wasn't a star. He was the umpire, Chris, who most people didn't even know. It's about humanity.
Right, he's not a teammate.
He's not a teammate. Like they didn't know him like that, but they know he just died on the field. Who wants to play a game?
Yeah, man. Our next guest is a former NFL lineman on the offensive side. Fox Sports Radio Weekend superstar, regular guest here on the Odd Couple. It's our brother Ephraim Salaam. What is up, man?
Hey, Ephraim.
What's good, brother? How y'all doing?
And right tackle from San Diego State, number 74, Ephraim Salaam.
All right, let's get right to it. Obviously, you know what we want to talk about. So you as a former player, What were your thoughts when you saw what went down last night?
I was devastated. I really was devastated, man. To watch that young man get up and fall the way he did, it felt like my soul came out of my body. It's hard to put into words because, someone who's been in games and who's, played for a long time. And I've been on teams where, players have been carted off on stretchers and, the face mask taken off the helmet and the neck brace put on and the back support. But I had never, ever witnessed them trying to resuscitate a player on the field. And it was horrific. It was horrific.
Ephraim, there have been did you know the Reggie Brown? Does that ring a bell to you? With the Lions, he played against the Jets in 1997.
Yes,
and he broke his neck in a game. CPR was performed, and Ephraim, they played that game. I don't know if that was the game Barry Sanders also had 2,000 yards, like went over the 2,000-yard mark. Is it mind-boggling when you think about that game went on as scheduled and this one, clearly the players wanted no part of playing last night?
Well, and I give the credit to the players because first and foremost, I'm almost, and I'm speculating, but I'm almost positive the players' reactions to what they were witnessing with their brother, their teammate on both sides of both teams was the driving force to not go back out there and play. Because I believe at some point when they had gotten him in the ambulance and they took him off to the hospital, they were saying that they were going to give the team time to warm up and they were going to get back to play. And shout out to the coaches too, both of the coaches that recognized that this was a traumatic experience. This is PTSD, man. Like you people always negate the human factor of professional athletes.
Yep.
Right? First of all, the mental fortitude and wellness to be a professional athlete and go with the ups and the downs and to witness something like that is 100% PTSD. It's no way what was going to happen if somebody else was going to get hurt because you cannot focus. And football takes the ultimate focus, so you do prevent injury. It's no way on either side of the ball anyone was going to be able to focus knowing that they didn't know what this young man, was he going to be okay, was any of that. So shout out to the coaches and the players and finally the NFL for coming in and canceling that game.
Ephraim, I've often wondered, and like you said, I mean, we don't see things like what happened last night regularly, obviously. But, we do see players carted off. Most cases, thankfully, they may give a thumbs up on their way, into the tunnel to let people know they're okay.
Yeah.
But sometimes, not all the time, but I get it when it's an ACL as bad as something like that is. But when you see, have you ever been in a game where it was a serious injury and it wasn't life or death, but you didn't know what the condition of your teammate was or was going to be going forward? And I've often wondered, how do you just get yourself back in the frame of mind? Is it when you start playing again, does it take a few hits, a few plays to really, or even longer to kind of get back to just playing, or is it kind of automatic?
It is not automatic. It's difficult. I remember in 2007, I was with the Houston Texans. I believe we were playing the Washington Redskins. And Cedric Killings, our defensive lineman, was on the wedge, and he just, hit someone and collapsed, and they rushed out, stabilized him. This takes a long time. It's not like, 5-10 minutes and then it was on. So we watched him be stabilized and strapped in and put on the stretcher and taken off the field. And all of that thing is daunting because as a player, And as a human being, you've put yourself in that situation. So now it could happen on any play. So now we're supposed to go out and have 40 more plays with that in the back of your mind. It's very difficult, man. It is, and shout out to any and all of the players who've had to deal with a situation like this and has gone back to play, because that's the mental toughness and fortitude we're talking about with these professional athletes. No matter what's going on at home, what's happening on the field, you're supposed to block it all out and do your assignment, right? That's the behind the money and behind all of the accolades that go with being a professional athlete.
Right.
Hey, I think we mentioned it yesterday, Chris, and Ephraim, I don't know, there's only one player who actually died, or Chuck Hughes. Did you know that story with the Detroit Lions, a wide receiver in 1971?
No.
Ran over to the huddle in a game. He wasn't hit or anything, and there was a blood clot. He collapsed on the field and wound up dying. He's considered the only NFL player to ever die on the field during a game. So that was and that's very fortunate when you think of all the things you just talked about, Ephraim, that could happen in the course of a game that might cost you your life. So it's pretty incredible that there's only been one, but still, it's scary.
It is. It's very scary, and social media is strange, because as severe and as gruesome as that was to me, you had people worried about the game, right? Like, this is a big game. We gotta finish. Like, it's really weird how insignificant a person's well-being seems when something happens to interrupt the natural flow, right? And there's a lot of backlash. The great thing about social media is you will be called to task immediately. And there's several members in the media who had to do some backpedaling and some explaining, because it seemed that the game and the completion of the game and the standings were more important than this man's life, which, I mean, that is just, who cares?
And you know what? Chris and I talked earlier, and the thing also, Ephraim, when you're dealing with social media and putting stuff out in these sensitive and situations, is how people, read it or take it as well.
Interpret it. That's
am I right?
right.
Interpret it.
They can't hear the inflections in your
Right.
voice, the tone. You know what I mean? It can be misconstrued for sure.
And most of the time it will be. So you have to understand that before you tweet.
Yep.
Right? Like, you don't have to tweet about everything. That's what people so consumed with the updating and you don't have to tweet everything. Everything you're feeling, you don't have to do that.
100%. Same thing. I didn't tweet at all about it, and not that I don't care, but I just was in a situation where, what can I add to it? I'm not in Cincinnati. Right. I don't know what's happening. I don't have any insight. What am I tweeting?
That's exactly right.
Before you go, what is your feeling on what they should do? Do you think they should play at some point?
No, the game's
not
irrelevant.
Play.
The game's irrelevant.
So cancel it. Tie.
Just let it go, man. It's a tie. It's a tie, and keep it pushing.
Okay.
It just, you don't want anything to bring back what we like.
Right.
If they go somewhere and play, like, it's just, that's all where people are going to be thinking about. And I'm sure this young, you don't even, just let it go.
How tough is, and again, I go take a minute because I know we got a break, but for we think about this one game, and like you said, let that go. But the Bills, both teams, are going to continue their seasons. Mm-hmm. How do you think this will affect the Bills going forward?
It'll affect them, but at least they'll have more answers. God willing, and I pray to God that as the time goes by, the news starts to come out, and it's hopeful. It's better news. and that in itself is comfort, right? That in itself helps you to be able to continue on. But when you don't have the information, it's hard because now you're just speculating, you're wondering, you're praying for the best and preparing for the worst. When you have all of those things, it's impossible to focus on a game or a job or anything like that.
That's well said. All right, that's our man Ephraim Salaam. Thank you, brother. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. You brothers stay safe, man.